Mohammed. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أفضل الذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم المصطفى محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a plague that has transcended religion, culture, ethnicities, nationalities, age. It knows no gender, nor does it have a particular affiliation with financial status. Drug addiction has been a taboo topic for centuries, for a whole host of reasons. Either it is a subject matter which disturbs many communities from discussing among many pertinent subjects that are very pertinent yet under-discussed. There is a lot of demand and little supply, because you don't need to be Muslim to notice that this is an issue that might affect my own household, my own community, people that I care about, people that I know personally, maybe even myself. And with that being said, we in the school of Ahlul-bayt understand that there isn't an area in life that can be a problem except that Allah has already brought its solution. There isn't any area of this existence. If you claim to be a perfect religion, then you have addressed everything perfectly. Otherwise, it would not be a perfect way of life, because that is what Islam is. It's not a set of rules, it's a way of life based on relative circumstances, how you will interact and respond. Allah has given you the keys. And this particular subject, indeed, we find even the messenger of God speaking about the world of taking substances to entertain a high, whether it's class A, category A drugs, whether it's what is seen as commonly accepted alcohol consumption, which is worse than, for example, smoking, but that has been normalized, or it's the likes such as rolling a blunt, a joint, these things, the terminology from the small deemed to the high class A, cocaine and heroin. You, because you call yourself Muslim, doesn't mean you're exempt from these things or going to be not answerable or questioned on the Day of Judgment. That if you had a member of your home who could have avoided this, number one is Allah doesn't expect things on you. At the end of the day, everyone's responsible for their own decision making. But at least we have a responsibility. Be me, the father of the house, or the mother, or a sibling, or someone that simply cares about my fellow brothers and sisters in the Muslim community by and large. Whether you are here in Orlando or you're in Dearborn, wherever you may be, this is a common trend, and we need to look into the world of Islam Ahlul Bayt, in addition to the social solutions, mental, therapeutic, and all of the answers to find, inshallah ta'ala, what advice and sources of guidelines can we stem from in, inshallah ta'ala, our worldview. Let us examine this after Allah salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. When you look into the Holy Quran al-Kareem, Allah doesn't speak about substance abuse as we understand it today in the particular manner. He gives a general principle, and Allah expects wherever this principle applies, then you live by the following code. God in the ayah states that alcohol or intoxicants, إنما الخمر, intoxication, khamr, from the term and the root etymologically, al-khimar. The headscarf is called khimar rather than being called hijab, because men have a hijab but they don't wear a headscarf. They have a religious hijab, just like the sisters as well, but we commonly associate that with the sisters because we can identify a scarf. Whereas if we're talking particular partition, we call that khimar. We call that a barrier. So Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ, surely khamr. Khamr I thought was alcohol, but it's a principle, because Allah, if He wanted to say alcohol, He would have said إِنَّمَا النَّبِيذُ. Nabidh is alcohol, for example, or al-bira, or beer, or for example, any of these other, or al-banj, which by the way, is not spoken about in the Quran. These are leaves that when chewed, develop a type of intoxication effect and hallucination. But they were mentioned in the world of ahadith. Subhanallah. The Messenger of God spoke about the banj, and I will mention it with its reference, inshallah ta'ala. Allah used a general principle. Anything that inhibits your reasoning, that's it. إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ, because khimar is barrier. What is it blocking and is acting as a barrier from? My intellect, my reasoning, my consciousness to make proper decision making, my cognitive faculties and ability to come and make a reasonable, educated decision. If that is inhibited, that is a form of khamr. But alcohol is included in that. Weed is included in that. Ganja is included in that. Whatever you want to say inhibits your reasoning, Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ. Some of the youth are laughing. وَالْمَيْسَرُ. Maysar can also be forms of gambling addictions. And subhanAllah, look how they go hand in hand. Oftentimes, gamblers are also what? Drinkers. And oftentimes, drinkers are also what? Gambling. And if they're not gambling with this, they're gambling with their life soon. That, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ. وَالْمَيْسَرُ وَالْأَنصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ. These are forms of lot and casting, that stone, altar, sacrifices, bizarre habits is the common denominator. رِجْسٌ مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Defilements, رِجْس. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ طَهَارًا. What is the opposite of tahara? Rijs. What does Allah call alcoholism, intoxications, weed, ganja? What else is out there? Crystal meth. Wallah, I don't know. Something else. Cat. All these names. Heroin, mushrooms. If it inhibits your reasoning, khamr. Because we've restricted it to what? Alcohol. But then that means nothing else is khamr? La. If it inhibits, some might say, wait a minute. Coffee also does something mentally. It does. You're looking at me because I know you drink a lot of coffee. Coffee does have some form of stimulant mentally, but it doesn't give hallucinatic effects. It doesn't impair and warp your perception of time. I can drive when I'm drinking coffee, but I can't drive when I'm drinking gin. I can drive when I'm enjoying a sip of, well, I can't do Starbucks these days, but I can drive when I'm drinking chai. Yes, it might have mental, effects and stimulants, for example, but I can take a supplement, and I could also take something that can warp my perception, temporarily affecting my cognitive decision-making, LSD, whatever it might be. These, at the end of the day, well, you could say, well, that's addictive as well. There's an addiction that has zero in regards to a net long-term effect. And then there's an addiction, take one, you're over. And the thing is, many can rush to the conclusion that it's over. Why bother even pursuing any more progress spiritually? I'm someone that's plagued with this effect. Is there hope for me? There's more hope for you. There's a little hope for the dealer though. But there's still hope for him as well. Allah's door of Tawbah and Rahmah has never closed. But Allah says, here's a principle. Wherever this applies, there are exceptions. Medical exceptions, but there are exceptions, not exemptions. Exception, but you're not exempt. What does that mean? Just because you might feel problems, is there an alternative to your solution or to your rather problem than, for example, taking a regimen that was not necessary to address a problem which could have been taken care of naturally, which could have been taken care of through seeking consultation, therapeutically, without entertaining a high that Allah despises, impairing your decision making, warping your time, cognitive abilities. You see a sign that says, don't drink and drive. Just say, don't drink. Why do you encourage don't drinking when it's driving time? Sometimes you think there are people, you tell them, how much do you love your children? How much do you love your family? They'll say, I'll never touch and put a finger on them. I'll never be angry at them. I'll never hit them. Give them one too many drinks, then they will be the worst human being. They won't even remember what they're doing. Why hold the message, don't drink and drive? Just put don't drink. Why are we encouraging a world of drinking? If in the world of drinking today, an overwhelming majority of crimes happen under the influence, when a person is intoxicated. Why? Because they can't come to their senses in making the final decision that is of their interest, for example. But that's the world of drinking. How about, I don't even need to begin. Do I need to explain? CNN in 2021 showed an article that was done by Oxford University that they did an observational, non-peer-reviewed case study of 25,000 individuals. And the conclusion of the study was how alcohol affects the brain. There is no safe amount of alcohol you could drink. All of it affects the brain's gray matter. All of it has an irreversible effect on the brain. Any amount and consumption of alcohol. 2021, please look this one up. 2021, CNN or Oxford University, no safe amount of alcohol. None. It doesn't exist. Not a single drop. It will irreversibly affect the gray matter of a human being's brain. Why would I do that for a good night's fun? Ruin the rest of my life for a good night's fun. Some might say, but your earlier case was that this wasn't something natural. Has nothing to do with natural, because if we're going to go the natural route, there are so many things a person naturally feels. But at that point, you're in the world of haywan. I thought you were an insan, where you use your reason above your sensations, above your desires. Someone might naturally feel a certain manner to abuse others. In that case, I can't say, but it was natural. Who cares if it's natural, synthetic, organic, topical? If it inhibits reasoning, Allah has put a hurma. I might have chronic issues. How dare you take away my solution when I came back and I served? I might have essential tremors. I might have trauma. I might have these problems. A doctor prescribed it for me. You're good. If a doctor prescribed it for you, Allah says in the Holy Quran, after describing how pig is haram, the blood is haram, certain foods that are haram to eat, Allah then adds, إِلَّا مَنِ اضْطُرَّ, except the one that is مضطر, the one that is compelled, whether it's through life or medically. Allah says this is your only exception. There are people, I remember a friend saying, this was quite silly, that he had a scab that was very exposed and he was bleeding very profusely. They then stitched him up. I don't know if he was playing a game, I think, but they stitched him up. He then realized the stitches, they don't need to be removed. They just melt into the body. So he investigated it. What kind of stitches, the threads, melt in the body? It turned out that the threads came from pig skin. The swine, subhanAllah, as much as we despise the animal, look at how similar it is, ironically, biologically, to the insan, whereby the skin can merge and blend into the human being as such. He's like, well, am I part pig now? Am I najis? What's the case? Well, first of all, no one eats another human, so don't worry about najas or whatever. But in that case, no, there was a case. There was an exception here. There was no other way to address this critical case. Therefore, they use this. You were compelled. This was no others. But if you were really given this as the final solution, prescribed by the doctor, some might say, well, my doctor prescribed it. Khalas, I have to. Wait a minute. If it's a chronic issue, then you must address the chronic pain. Why do you need to get high at the same time? Allah says in the Holy Quran, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ, has a form of khimar been placed in your cognitive decision making? Yes, but it's used for my back problem. There are so many other solutions for your back problem than a blunt, or a joint, or an edible, or this, or that, or a foil, or a spoon, or whatever, or a needle. That's the only solution? No, Allah, that's the only solution? If you're a man, be a man. I'm going to use that language. As your masculine prerogative, you can take it. Not the pain, but the solution to find an alternative. Because if it's the cost of your cognitive reason and inhibition and finding that a norm because of back pain, then I don't know if you can handle the other pains and problems of life. Because life will throw at you hurdles. Each time you receive a hurdle, you need to smoke one, take one. You're better than that. You're greater than that. Some might say, well, if it was prescribed, if it's prescribed, there's an alternative. You know, for example, there's THC. THC is what? Tetrahydrocannabinoids. THC is the psychoactive compound in cannabis. So they say, what are you teaching us about this? Well, it's going to affect maybe one of my kids one day because it's recreational. Is it not? Is it not? If it is, it's not. Probably not here, but maybe it is. Recreational use means I can buy like I can buy just another thing I can smoke at a gas station for cheaps. If it's recreational, it's going to affect my children. I have a responsibility and a taklif al-shar'i, or my brother. And some of the best places for people to gather and smoke are under religious circumstances. Brothers gathering and hanging and mingling. Little do you know that, for example, there's one with negative intention because he tells you, and it's not the case that people have negative intentions. People do this for 3 reasons. Number one, they have traumatic experiences such that this actually brings them a sense of solace. Number two, they're peer pressured, so they're making a poor decision. They found themselves in a situation, they made a poor decision. Number three, they're just simply looking for a moment of pleasure. Temporary pleasure that will permanently affect your brain chemistry is not a deal you should be ever taking because you are better than that. If it's THC, but that's not your solution. That's a psychoactive compound. If you have a psychological issue, and the doctor may have prescribed that, that could apply to your case. Those who are schizophrenic, they take THC in the form of a gas, but because they have a psychological problem, so to counter that, the doctor and the psychiatrist, not even psychologist, the psychiatrist who prescribes medicine says this will help you with that. Not for the purpose of fun, but this is a serious medical issue. How do you feel knowing that you're taking something that a genuine schizophrenic or schizophrenic individual is taking and they need it? Then if it's chronic issues, CBD. CBD has no THC. It's from the hemp plant, from the same family of cannabis, but marijuana is here with THC, and then hemp is here with CBD. If it has no THC, it's halal. CBD, cannabinoids. These things here, again, another hormone, another chemistry, another chemical. But if it's for chronic issue, why did you go to THC with marijuana? You could have just went to CBD. Why? Because is it an excuse? Is it now I have a reason and a way to try it for fun? Never alter your cognitive, rational decision making and knowing you're violating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a moment, because how many people with just a moment ruin the rest of their lives? Because if you think it's just one time, let's have fun, it's going to be a second time. I swear in the name of the one who created the heavens and the earth, if it's once and you've dropped in it, you're going to keep falling again. Those who fall for everything, they will stand for nothing. Because if it's easy to be guiding and attracting as such, if it's one day a plant, it's the next day a powder, then it's the third day a needle, and it goes so on. So let me just try it once in my life. I will never judge that perhaps someone went through a path, perhaps someone is struggling, perhaps someone grew up with the wrong people. That's why in Islam, Allah has given us solutions. While He addressed the problem, He gave you a solution. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, stay away from it. It's not the case that if you're already in the process of struggling, it's stay away from that individual who's dealing. Go away from the group that's supplying. There is a person who's providing it. Allah says, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, ijtinab, just stay away, keep away. But you need to put effort. You are your own solution to this problem. Because your problem is in you, as Amir al-Mu'minin says in the wonderful diwan, دَوَاؤُكَ فِيكَ وَمَا تَحْسَبُ وَدَاؤُكَ مِنْكَ وَمَا تَشْعُرُ أَتَحْسَبُ نَفْسَكَ جُرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ انطَوَى الْعَالَمُ الْأَكْبَرُ. One day, The Messenger of God, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Look at how he never gave up on the youth. Observe the beautiful following story. On his way, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to Hunayn. You know, the Battle of Hunayn happened in the 9th year after Hijrah. These were massive communities called Thaqif and Hawazin. They collected and they began to proceed to kill the Muslims. So Rasulullah says, I will reach you at your border before you come to Medina and Mecca. So Rasulullah went with his army. On his way, they were camping out. This is south of Mecca. So he had already left Medina. He's now reached Mecca. He's now heading south of Mecca. He's camping. He's camping. Do you know who comes and harasses the Prophet and his tent, surrounded by his companions, his family, and his wives? 3 people. 3 people come. They begin to make fun of the adhan while the Messenger of God is in his tent. So, you know, some people are mocking the adhan. I remember when we were at school, sometimes we had these non-Muslims. They would look at you and go like, Allahu Akbar, and they make fun, they joke, and they whatever. Mock, go ahead, so do whatever you want to do. But these people did that to Rasulullah. When he was getting mocked, it's in the middle of the night, the Messenger would open the tent and he would see them running away. You know how like people ding-dong ditch? Kind of like that. The next day, the Messenger of God, he knows who's behind what. He doesn't need to discover and ask questions. The next day, the Messenger of God, in the middle of the day, sees the 3 youth. And he points to them, come. And they begin shivering, knowing that now it's over. We used to make fun of his adhan. Rasulullah looks at one of them. He says, your adhan wasn't accurate, but you had the best voice. How about I make you my mu'adhin in Mecca? The young man said, I had nothing to do with his deen. I just wanted to make fun of, because I would hear Bilal make that adhan. So I wanted to mock him and mock the way of their prayer. But suddenly, he begins to accept us and say that your adhan wasn't accurate, but you had the best voice. So he was then appointed as the official mu'adhin of Mecca. When he was appointed as the official mu'adhin of Mecca, what does he say? He, Abu Mahdhur al-Jumahi, says, I then stuck with him like a camel's baby sticks with its mother. I never left his side. I had no faith in the Holy Messenger of God until he brought me acknowledgement. That's how the Prophet brought the youth. What do you learn from this? That even if you see misbehaving, abusing, wrong being done, never cancel people from society. Who are you to prevent people from entering the way of God or the house of God? If they're using substances, if they're whatever, acceptance. Accept them. Bring them. Give them acknowledgement. But the Messenger of God also says in a wonderful narration here that سيأتي زمان على أمتي يأكلون شيئا اسمه البنج. That's an interesting one. If you ever go to the Middle East and you take anesthetics, anesthesia in the Middle East in Arabic is called al-banj. Banj. يأكلون البنج. شيئا اسمه البنج. أنا بريء منهم وهم بريئون مني. There will come a time, this is in al-Mustadrak ala al-Wasa'il of al-Muhaddith al-Nuri, Wasa'il al-Shi'a al-Hurr al-Amili. The hadith is by the Messenger of God. What did he say? There will come a time, it's not now, but there's going to be a time. So it could be now, but not during his time. Upon my ummah, they will be consuming something called al-banj, anesthesia, bench. Now, that doesn't mean we're taking anesthetics, we're in trouble now. It was a leaf then which caused psychoactive effects to people. يأكلون شيئا اسمه البنج أنا بريء منهم. I am disassociated from them. But why, Ya Rasulullah? What is it, his fault or her fault? لا. He adds, وهم بريئون مني. And they have disassociated from me. These are people who find it normal to spread these things, corrupting youth. I wish it's just the youth, and I don't wish it's just the youth, but it's not just the youth. Elderly, the women folk, everyone else. If someone is a source of corruption around, the first thing you do is not cancel or ostracize or excommunicate. Like the Messenger of God, he brought him together. The first thing we do is acknowledge the problem, that a problem exists. It's a taboo topic, yeah, but we have to acknowledge the problem. If you don't, but you work around it, it's hiding the problem under the carpet. It's still there, but you just don't want to see it. First, acknowledge there's a problem, and there's no shame in that. I'm a brother to all of my brothers and sisters here. Feel free and comfortable. If not with me, we have wonderful brothers and sisters around here. Approach any one of them. For those who know themselves best, it's okay. It doesn't need to be a public advertisement. Just go to any one of the brothers, but acknowledge, or the sisters, or the leaders in this community that you find inspirational. Just say, Habibi, listen, I have this struggle. Can you help me in the process? But you have to begin by acknowledging it. This is in the case of the person who's abusing and the case of the person who witnesses the abuse. Be a source of inspiration. Help someone else as much as you can. And if you are struggling, find someone else. Because once the process begins, it's difficult to leave. Find a source. Find some guidance. There's Alcohol Anonymous. There's no shame in that. What's the shame in that one? Someone goes and finds a solution to their problem. I see no shame in that. Even, and this might be heavy for some of our guys here, even if it's as complicated as smoking, for example, try to remove that habit. There are certain sessions, groups, I even know, subhanAllah, WhatsApp groups for those who are trying to quit, be it marijuana, be it heroin, be it drugs, but the resources are there. The thing is what? You have to put the effort. By beginning with a self-acknowledgement, admit. Once you admit, you then begin to pave the way. Allah, and I wrap up with this, is so good. He could immediately solve the problem for you. But God has expectations on all of us. Whether you are struggling now or you see someone struggling, you have to let them and you need to take the first step. God could have easily sent a Sayyida Maryam bread to eat when she was experiencing the pangs of labor and fearing a society that was going to accuse her chastity. But you guys won't ever understand this, nor will I, but the sisters will. The worst allegation any sister can go through is to be accused of her dignity, of her chastity, being promiscuous. No woman deserves to be accused of this at all. And it is haram for men to make fun of women and women to make fun of women with such a claim. Someone that likes to go around. That is the biggest sin you can level against anyone, because it was leveled against one of the most purified women, Lady Maryam alayhi salam. She was going through so much of that pain. She began to even say, Laytani muttu qabla hadha. I wish I was dead before this. Look how much pain she went through. Wa kuntu nasiyan mansiya. And I was just forgotten in the annals of history. No one needs to remember me. She was going through so much pain and paranoia. What does God send to her? He says, وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ تُسَاقَطْ عَلَيْكِ رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا. Maryam, shake the base of the palm tree next to you. Dates will fall, then you can eat it to give you some solace and energy. Allah Jabbar as-samawat wal-ard couldn't send her a loaf of bread? He could. He sent a ma'idah for her son Jesus from the heavens. Ma'idat min as-sama'i takunu lana 'ida li awwalina wa akhirina. But Allah wanted her to put the effort first. It's about taking the first step. When you were little, you were spoon-fed. But now you're grown. Now Allah expects from you. Now there's a taklif. If you find yourself in whatever it may be it in the world of abuse, you're not alone. You're loved, and this community receives you with open arms, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, ameen. And inshallah, such a community does not display and disregard and excommunicate those who are struggling, because you're not Maliki Yawmuddin. Everyone carries a luggage of remorse potentially, but that doesn't mean we ostracize. Like Abu Mahdhur al-Jumahi, who when he was mocking the adhan in a funny, silly voice, Rasulullah said, your voice is beautiful, but let me teach you the adhan. And he was well accepted and warm. Begin by acknowledgement, put the effort, watch how Allah will pave the way. Why? مَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever has that conscientiousness of Allah, God will give him a way out. Just have that sense of acknowledgement. Allah will give you khuruj, insha'Allah ta'ala. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. والحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. My dear brothers and sisters, tomorrow will be our last lecture here with you all, inshallah. So do attend. I would love to see you. So, inshallah, we could be at your service and see you for one last final time. And may Allah bless this entire community. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.